G'day there guys, have you had your morning coffee yet? And if not, what's wrong with you? It's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and what would you know, enjoy today's bloody good content. Thank you. Posted by user IBGooSit, titled, Am I the a-hole for being disgusting in front of my fiance's family to prove a point? Disclaimer, discussions of poop. So, I'm a semi-vegan. I have lactose intolerance, gluten sensitivity, not to be confused with celiac, and irritable bowel syndrome. I get teased a lot for my dietary choices, mostly because people think I'm a preachy PETA ass, but in reality, I'm fighting a constant battle to not crap my pants. I also get people thinking I have an eating disorder because I'm relatively petite and can't eat 99% of food and spend a lot of time in the bathroom. I do eat occasional fish or baked chicken, but 99% of my diet is plant-based. Red meat is a no-go, no dairy, and I don't eat grains, which sucks because I love bread so effing much. Over the weekend, my fiance and I went to his parents' house. They wanted to give us an engagement dinner. We've been engaged for 3 months now, but we live a ways away. At the dinner was mum, stepdad, younger brother, and grandma. They know of my food aversions. They know I just eat rabbit food. I've been with my fiance 4 years now. But at the dinner, they served very well-seasoned chicken and sausage jambalaya with cornbread and smothered potatoes. I have lived my entire life in the southern US surrounded by delicious food I cannot digest. I was really hurt. It felt like I was ignored. My fiance asked if there was anything I could eat, since it was all almost completely against my dietary restrictions. Their response was I should just live a little, and I needed some meat on my bones anyway. After all, we were celebrating. I should enjoy myself. Well, I excused myself, and my fiance asked if I wanted to leave. I said no, I'm used to it. I didn't want to come off as stuck up. So, I ate the food. Not a lot, but enough to be polite. And listen, it was effing good, I'll admit it. But less than an hour later, I felt the rumbles. You know the ones, where a deluge is imminent. We were all chatting in the living room. The night was winding down, but I knew I wouldn't make it all the way back home. I excused myself to the restroom, but at the last second, I decided rather than go to the guest bathroom on the other side of the house, I'd go to the half bath next to the living room. So, I went. In all my loud, stinky glory, I went. It lasted maybe 5 minutes, but the damage was immeasurable. The bathroom stunk, and when I came out, it was obvious everyone heard. It was awkward. I said, sorry, sensitive stomach, you know. And we left shortly after. My fiance was embarrassed, and we fought on the car ride home. He said I did it on purpose, and it was disgusting, and I shouldn't have been so petty. We could have just left. Why would I act so immature, etc.? I wasn't sorry. I said his family knew about my problems but ignored me. I couldn't help it. So Reddit, was I being an ass? I don't think you particularly suck morally in this situation, but I do think you're the a-hole to yourself for giving yourself diarrhea just to prove a point to your in-laws. That's just a bad trade-off, isn't it? Like, your choices were either 1, eat the food they knew you cannot digest healthily and feel the results, or 2, refuse the food and make everyone upset. I don't exactly know what your husband expected you to do in this situation, since it's a lose-lose regardless. They probably still would have heard and smelt what the rock was cooking halfway across the house anyway if you'd used the other bathroom. Your husband's reaction to this makes me think that he doesn't have your back like you think he does. That could potentially be a problem, don't you think? I'm gonna go not the a-hole though. Now in the comments, the Shadow People 9 says, not the a-hole. They should have made some food that you could eat too. What they did was flat out rude. Maybe now they'll respect your dietary needs. I disagree. Fiance would have left and stood up for the OP in the appropriate manner, being clear that it's not OP choosing not to live, but rather that she can't eat those foods. Instead, she decided to turn her fiancé down and be incredibly passive-aggressive. Are her future in-laws ignorant? Yeah. Is being passive-aggressive and, yes, gross, the way to remedy that? Absolutely not. Next time, OP, when your fiancé offers to leave, take him up on it. Edit to add, since a lot of people keep saying something to the effect of, and crap her pants, or being forced to eat the food for years until she snapped, read the paragraph where her fiancé took the lead, asked his parents where the food for OP was, and upon hearing there was none, asked OP if she wanted to leave again. She will not be forced to eat the food, and she will not be crapping her pants in the car or otherwise if she simply leaves, which her fiancé offered to do. Her fiancé was willing to set a clear boundary and enforce it. Sure, if he wasn't willing to do that, OP would have been in the right, and the comments about leaving the fiancé might be valid, but that's not the case here. What OP did was not the right choice given the other options available to her. She willingly and knowingly ate the food that she did not need to. I think I should also add that I have these exact same issues. I know OP's pain. However, she made the choice to eat the food after she had the choice to leave. She did not eat the food, and then fiancé offered to leave, so this whole thing about crapping in the car is completely invalid. Now, How to Fix Our Democracy rebuts that and says, in my opinion, this permanently solved the problem. If they had left, the hosts would have thought that she was petty and would have done it again. Now they know she was very clearly not making it up or exaggerating, and they will probably respect her diet in the future. I agree. Sometimes you have to prove it. Edit. Had a manager that didn't believe in migraines, so I stayed with the migraine, and, with migraines can come vomiting, which can come with zero warning. So I brought the poor maintenance guys some cookies a few days later. Now the manager gets it. Buttered White Bread says, not the a-hole, and your fiancé needs to evaluate his priorities. He should be embarrassed by his parents being such a-holes, not of you. He's the biggest a-hole here in my opinion. But he offered to leave. He has the right priorities. OP said it wasn't a problem and she would stay. She didn't include that she would teach his parents a lesson the hard way on why she eats rabbit food. This is on OP. By offering OP to make the decision to leave, it would end up being OP's fault that the dinner is ruined. He should have told his parents it was unacceptable and told them that they were leaving. So I guess, what do you guys think about this one? There's a lot of good points being brought up here, and I agree with aspects of both sides of the argument, but I still think it's not the a-hole on this one. I kinda do feel like they had to learn the hard way, since I wouldn't want them continuing this behavior if I was in OP's shoes. Let me know down below what you guys think. Our next post is by user Psychedelic Corpse Psycho, titled, Am I the a-hole for making a scene when I found out my sister put my niece up for adoption when she had her son? So my sister had a second child, and we were all thrilled for her. She lives a few states over, and we haven't seen her this last year. She had one child 2 years ago with her boyfriend, and the other one was born last month. Yesterday, we had a family Zoom meeting to see the baby, and had to say hi to my other nibbling. We get on, and the family starts to load in. Everyone is basically there, thrilled to see the baby. We get to meet her new baby boy. After a bit, I ask to see my niece as well. My sister got quiet, and very quietly said she doesn't have her. My aunt questioned this, and I was also confused. After a few minutes, my sister said that in the beginning of January, she had put her daughter up for a closed adoption because she couldn't care for 2 kids. Everyone lost it. The whole Zoom was a mess. We didn't know. We never got to say goodbye. She didn't have to do this because any of us would have taken my niece. Hell, I could have taken her. I've had multiple miscarriages and fertility issues, and although I'm currently pregnant, I am stable, owning a home, and have the resources to have taken a toddler as well as have my baby. Important, my sister has always also said that she wanted to be a boy mum. So I lost it. I called my sister a narcissistic expletive. I asked her when she'd get bored of the new baby and get rid of that one too. I asked her how the hell she could do this without reaching out to family. I know my sister, and I know deep down she just didn't want a daughter. She was depressed when she found out she was having a girl, but thrilled for this entire recent pregnancy. I called her a monster for making children she didn't want to care for, like they were a novelty. I said some other things too. At this point, my grandmother is a complete mess and says her chest hurts, so I stop. My aunt, who is with my grandmother, goes to help her and turns off the camera. My grandmother ended up having a panic attack that they thought was a heart attack at first. I am so glad she's okay. My sister has since cut off all contact from the entire family. My father is pissed at me for blowing up. I was the only one who did, and says that I pushed her away. He said he could have tried to convince her to reverse it, but my verbal lashing completely ruined any chance of getting my niece back. I don't think he understands what a closed adoption means. Also, adoption takes a minute, so for her to have it completed by January makes me feel this process was in place for a minute. I don't think there's any chance of seeing my niece again when the mother and father both signed her to be adopted. He's mad at me because now he lost his granddaughter and is afraid that he'll never know his grandson. My dad thinks I'm an ass for freaking out and nearly giving my grandmother a heart attack. I'm feeling guilty that my grandmother had such an extreme reaction, but I feel that's because she lost her great-granddaughter. Yikes. Honestly, I absolutely think they're terrible people for doing a closed adoption like that. I didn't even know what a closed adoption was until just now, and that's absolutely terrifying to get that news out of the blue like that. I feel like it's absolutely unjustified that those parents so willingly adopted out their child like that from what I can assume is purely gender-based discrimination. They had so many other options to adopt the child out to their other family members, but instead they chose to do this in secrecy. That was never going to end well. And yes, I understand the argument for the child being with a family that actually wants it is better than two resentful parents who are going to neglect them, but that ideal family option is available without having a closed adoption. There is no context available to change my opinion on this one. I'm going not the a-hole. Your anger was and is justified, OP. Now in the comments, Caged Jaybird says, "Not the a-hole. For a moment, I misread it and thought she put up the newest baby for adoption, which, if she was worried about being able to support 2 children, I would have understood. Though, with her knowing you're interested in adoption, I would have thought that she was a little bit of an ass. However, after realizing that instead she adopted out her 2-year-old, I'm just utterly sickened and stunned. I have memories from being 2 years old, so this is a child who was aware enough to remember her parents and other family. This is a child who loved them unconditionally, who understood what love is. I'm just so sick at the thought of this." And Cat Landed replies, "Apologies for jumping on top comments, and I know this is very dark, but I think OP needs to contact the police to check that the girl was in fact legally adopted by a family. I have trouble believing a social worker or any legit agency would allow this without question, therapy or intervention, or even contacting family. My fear is that the sister did this under the table to people who were not vetted or could be traffickers, or worse, like Kaylee Anthony was supposedly with a babysitter. A closed adoption sounds like a great excuse as to why no one will ever see this niece again and have no way of checking up on if she was safe. Also, is the boyfriend okay? Or is it possible he's abusing her and pushed her to do this? Since OP's profile is legit and not a throwaway, I have deep concerns and questions about this." And OP replies, "I'm glad I kept the thread open while I worked. I see your comment, and I'm going to contact the authorities to do a welfare check to look into where my niece went. And edit 2 of the previous comment. Thanks y'all for drawing OP's attention to my comment. I believe they have commented stating that they will be contacting authorities and getting a lawyer, and hopefully their niece is safe and sound. Let's try not to get too graphic about the possibilities. My citing the Kaylee Anthony case was due to the similarities, and I wanted to underline the importance of having the proper authorities confirm the niece's safety, because you cannot be too safe when it comes to children's welfare and lives. And Metal Morian says, absolutely. I find it ridiculous to believe the social worker, and there had to be a social worker if it were a legal adoption, would not interview the family of the 2-year-old for possible placement. Like any social worker will look at a mum who says, I can't afford 2 kids, so I'm giving up my oldest, and offer ways to help or place the child with family as a first result if she really doesn't just want the kid. That kid has ties, relationships, family. No social worker would ignore that. Something is very fishy here. So, I have a cousin. We're a huge, stable family. She had multiple stable siblings, her parents were together at the time, like any of us could have taken a kid. Cousin is a bit of a drug head at the time and had her 3rd daughter. Her middle daughter is around 2 at the time. All of a sudden, she's on Facebook saying her best friend adopted the middle kid and no one in her family knew. There was no interviews of the family, nothing. I know the baby is safe because I went and stalked profiles, and my aunt and uncle did know the adopting family. The family adopted her and then cut all contact with my cousin. They were clean and just wanted a baby. So it can be done. I don't know how, and it feels wrong, but it can be done. And back to OP's post, they say, editor update, I've contacted local CPS for my sister's area, local courts, and I have a lawyer looking into it for me, starting tomorrow as I just obtained him. Thank you for the helpful comments pointing out the issues with this. Especially thank you to those in social work who reached out to me privately. I didn't realize how many options I had to fight this or to see if this was legit. I'll update when I find out more from the lawyer. Lots of people commenting this is fake. I really wish it was. This has been a nightmare. Thank you again to those with helpful suggestions and feedback. So I guess it may be a little while till we get an update on this one, and I will definitely read it out when I can get to it. Let me know you guys' thoughts and opinions on this one, because it's a real profile, it's not just a throwaway. I'd love to know what you guys think of this down in the comments. And our next post is by user Nanny Co-Parents, titled, Am I the a-hole for saying I co-parent with the nanny in front of my ex-husband and his family? So my ex-husband and I have been separated for a year and will more than likely be starting the divorce process any day now. Ever since we split up, my ex has hired a nanny to help him with childcare of our 2 kids during his time. The nanny usually does pickups and drop-offs. Originally, I would try to communicate things about the kids directly to him, but I could barely get in touch with him. He always made some excuse about how work was busy, but I feel like he should at least respond to my emails about the kids quickly, and that it was his responsibility to make sure the nanny had the relevant information too. Eventually, I got fed up with having to hound him every single time he needed information about the kids, and since the nanny does almost all of the childcare when they're with their dad, I decided to just communicate with her directly. I do still update my ex too, but now I only send him one email, and it's up to him to make the effort to read and respond to it. This has worked really well for the kids, and they seem to be doing a lot better during their time with their dad now, since the nanny makes the necessary adjustments for them. It was my ex-mother-in-law's birthday, and she asked me to bring the kids because my ex wasn't sure if he would be able to go. I still have a good relationship with my ex-in-laws, and I didn't want my kids to miss out on time with their family, so I agreed. My ex ended up showing up towards the end of the day. I haven't had to see my ex face-to-face in a very long time, and he's always known how to push my buttons. I was trying to be civil to him for the kids' sake, but he kept baiting me when no one else was in earshot. My mother-in-law made a comment about how she was so proud of us being able to co-parent so well after everything. My ex had whispered a sly comment to me not 2 minutes before my mother-in-law made her comment, so I was already quietly fuming. So I responded with, "Yes, I really enjoy co-parenting with the nanny. She's fantastic." My ex and his family weren't amused, and I received a lot of backlash from all of them. My ex accused me of calling him a deadbeat, and said he didn't want me talking to his nanny anymore because I should be communicating directly with him. Am I the a-hole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I believe I'm the a-hole because my mother-in-law was just trying to be nice, and I made things awkward by saying what I said. Also, my ex does have a hectic work schedule, but he does a lot for our kids, so it wasn't fair to imply that he was a bad dad. I get that, honestly. It's hard to see things in grey when stories seem to be so black and white on Am I the A-hole? Maybe we just had to be there in person to see if the delivery and context was slightly different to your interpretation of events, to see things from your perspective, and you maybe kinda sorta being an a-hole for this one? Maybe he is a great guy, and just works 24/7, but doesn't make the time and effort for his kids, and you implying he was a bad dad was somehow unjustified. Who knows? But from what you've given me so far, I'm of the belief that he truly doesn't make the time and effort for those kids. Perhaps there's more nuance, and if I was in your shoes it would be different, but I can confidently say you're not the a-hole for this interaction. Yes, your mother-in-law was just trying to be nice, but maybe this was the kick up the arse your ex needed in order to get his act together. The mother-in-law may have reacted badly initially to that comment, but it just may have started a fire under your ex's ass, now with your mother-in-law being more informed about just how little involvement he has in his children's lives. Such poor form from him to put all of that on a babysitter. That's really not their job to be handling this. So yeah, my judgment for this one is not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Throwaway96 says, "I'm sorry, but when he's not making an effort to communicate with you to coordinate around the kids and makes every excuse in the book to make himself unavailable, then you have every right to say what you said. He's offended because he didn't think that you'd call him out in front of his family and probably painted a picture that he's doing a much better job than he is doing. Not the a-hole." She's not the a-hole, but she just made her life a whole lot harder. I'm not sure I could have bitten my tongue either, but being not the a-hole isn't enough when kids are involved. Yeah, much like dealing with crazy roommates posts, this is a, "You're right, and you've had to put up with way too much bullcrap, but you're simply in a crappy position where you need to be extremely measured and strategic in how you advocate for yourself, regardless of fairness" situation. The difference is the consequences of not having superhuman self-control will rebound to her kids more than her. It's not really suited to this forum, since OP has to consider a lot more than who's in the right. It's not fair that her ex is such a vindictive, pissy deadbeat, but that's life. I think that's a big blind spot for this sub given the structure. Are you the a-hole? No. Was this a productive way to handle this problem that ultimately will achieve the best possible outcome for you? Also, no. There was a better way to respond that would have saved you a lot of grief for sure. You were annoyed with your ex at the same time, so you wanted to get back at him. You could have said something like, "Thanks, but the nanny has been a huge help. We definitely couldn't do it without her." You could then subtly lead the conversation to reveal that she does all the work with the kids, and your ex does almost nothing. There's also remaining silent. Not every comment needs a response. Rit Post Rit says, "Oof, that one hit your target perfectly." Not the a-hole. You didn't call him an awful dad. You made a joke about how often you talk to the nanny. You also complimented him on finding a great nanny. Well, I personally think it's a clear everyone sucks here. The ex sucks, point blank. No arguments there. He should be a present father, and he should already be the one handling the communication with OP, not the nanny. It's ridiculous that he's only now saying he's going to step up. OP kinda sucks for dragging the ex-in-laws into something that didn't involve them, but I'll mostly give that a pass since she said the ex was purposefully baiting her behind the scenes. Mostly though, I think OP was the a-hole to herself. Yes, it's a crappy co-parenting situation as far as the ex goes, but OP admitted herself that it's actually been working great for the kids. Plus, she also stated it's been less stress for her overall. This one comment has, at least temporarily, caused all of that to come crashing down. Best case scenario, the ex gets over it and everything blows over and either goes back to the way it was, or even better, the ex steps up like he should have from the beginning and they actually start to communicate properly. Worst case scenario, the ex stays pissed and vindictive about what went down and fires the current nanny out of pettiness, since she's obviously built a good relationship with OP, and then hires someone new that he can train to not work with OP at all. Edit to add, I don't blame OP at all. Knowing myself, I would have said that exact same thing. I'm just worried about her, and I want everything to work out. Not the a-hole, but I agree. The first thing I thought was, well, the nanny's fired. And OP replies, a lot of people seem to think that he would have fired the nanny or said something to her, but he didn't. The only thing that has really changed is that he responds much faster now and occasionally drops and picks up the kids himself. Sounds like it was a win of a comment then, OP. Maybe it's what he needed to hear to realize that it was time to be a father. Sometimes shaming works. Also, maybe somebody told him that not responding to her communications about children won't look well to the courts when it comes time. And maybe he realized that when they do actually divorce, the current state of affairs wouldn't help him in getting custody. OP has proof that he is incapable of co-parenting, including a witness, that also demonstrates disinterest and a lack of engagement on the father's part. OP is probably getting full custody, except every second weekend, when she shows every attempt to communicate about the kids is ignored by the father. To the point only the nanny is aware of what's happening with the kids. Hiring a nanny doesn't let you off the hook for being neglectful as a father. Alright guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you need a good laugh, please do check out my second channel, Markee 2, links down in the description below, or it's going to appear somewhere on the screen here at the end, little bubble with my face on it. As always, a big shout out to my Patreon and channel members. Your faces are surrounding me right now, and I love to have you guys with me, and down in the comment sections of each and every video, and just knowing that you're always there to support me. It's a humbling and lovely feeling. And rest assured, I do see you, and I do notice your support, and I thank you every day for being here and helping me along this journey. Not much else to say besides that, guys. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I do hope that you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to. I will see you in the next video, and thank you again. Bye.